So the state of Mississippi has a small town called Guntown, and it has a pretty wild local legend that no one knows for sure is true or not. So we all know the story of the last days of Abraham Lincoln. An actor called John Wilkes Booth shouts "Sic Semper Tyrannis," he unalives him, leaps from the balcony onto the stage, and then flees. Now historical accounts say that John Wilkes Booth was tracked down in Port Royal, Virginia, and there he was caught and executed. But the folks of Guntown, Mississippi have a much different story. A man by the name of Dr. John Fletcher Booth lived with his family in Guntown, and that last name is no coincidence. He was, in fact, a cousin of John Wilkes Booth. Now, according to generations of the family, John Wilkes Booth didn't die in Port Royal, Virginia. Instead, he fled by train to Guntown, Mississippi, where he lived in the attic of Dr. Booth. According to the accounts, the man in the attic walked with a limp, which would make sense as John Wilkes Booth injured his leg leaping from the balcony down to the stage. And the children were forbidden to speak of the visitor in the attic. And until the day she died in 1988, the granddaughter of Dr. Booth insisted that all of this was true. And to this day in Guntown, Mississippi, between the gravestones of Dr. Booth and his cousin George Booth, stands a small headstone marked John Wilkes Booth. No one has ever opened it up to see what's inside. So while there may be no historical evidence that John Wilkes Booth actually wound up in Guntown, Mississippi, there's also no evidence that he didn't.